Is it possible to beat Minecraft on fire? Is it possible to beat Minecraft without advancements? Is it... All of this sidesteps the real question. Is it possible to beat Minecraft at all? Imagine it's 100 years ago, and a computer with only Minecraft on it appears in your house. If you ignore all the obvious questions you'd have, could you beat the game? No internet? No wiki? No prior knowledge? Other people have tackled this idea, mainly retro gaming now.
How much of the game could you reasonably be expected to figure out for yourself?
It was a much harder question to answer before things like the recipe book and ruined portals started giving clues about progression that were sorely lacking before. Could you beat the game blind in that dark time? Say what you will about modern Minecraft, but its efforts to clarify progression have not gone unappreciated. If you ask me, they haven't gone far enough. Getting to the Nether takes just the right amount of imagination on the player's part, and so do plenty of the advancements, with little hints in their icons and the trees they branch off of. But how do you brew potions? How do you build golems? How do you resummon the dragon? And so many other things. Most of these videos use the player's inexperience with Minecraft as a way to interrogate Minecraft, but where they see an opportunity to test the game design, I latch onto something more basic. How do people make sense of an unfamiliar world? How much can one person achieve? And what are we without each other? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And God created man in his image. And man said,
What's that? Diorite.
About Oliver contains multitudes.
Hi.
He is an astrophysicist, an author,
Let me tell you a story.
a Dane,
This game was originally made by a Swede. That's it.
a spoken word poet,
I read patch notes. I eat game snacks. I buy DLC and I run victory laps.
but above all, he is a man.
Well, I couldn't have done any better, right? I was gonna do this anyway, I guess. Ah!
Let's rewind a bit. He's also a channel who plays puzzle and mystery games. I found him last year, before Elis's Supercuts started making the rounds, and thank God for Elis's Supercuts, and his Minecraft VODs became my comfort watch. Time-consuming maybe, but I didn't care.
What is that? Diorite.
Oliver intended to beat the game without any outside guidance. Not even his live chat, which serves the role of a sort of Greek chorus that starts chanting the word telepathy at him whenever they get frustrated. Which is very often, because as much as I love this guy, he can be oblivious.
We've got penguins.
Like, maddeningly oblivious.
What is this? Oh, diorite.
Toward the end of his first season, I was starting to lose hope, though things turned around. Now I find him just as entertaining for his constant forgetfulness and hubris.
So any sane man would go through here, right? I mean, it makes fucking sense. But I'm Oliver. I go for the glory. You think I'm gonna take the easy way out? Think again.
He's just as entertaining for his constant forgetfulness as he is for his sense of humor and, yes, his intelligence. Don't let his inability to make sense of a cartography table make you forget he's an astrophysicist.
Fusing hydrogen into helium.
An astrophysicist who went in with nothing and ended up beating every boss and dungeon, building a redstone item sorter, and inventing the mob grinder.
We are gonna make a Orphan Crusher right here.
But how?
It's a beautiful day for experimentation, isn't it?
Oliver makes my job comparing first-time players to scientists easy.
Welcome to Nevada.
Scientists plural in Oliver's case. His cycles of information gain and information loss mirror the evolution of whole societies.
All that knowledge is gone, just like the Library of Alexandria.
When he went on hiatus between seasons, so much knowledge just evaporated, it was like the fucking Roman Empire fell. Except instead of populations forgetting how to bathe and make concrete, it's just one guy forgetting why phantoms spawn.
What's this? It's diorite.
Every time he's back at square one, he builds everything back up stronger and smarter. One step back, 3 steps forward. No amount of Minecraft wisdom is going to save Oliver from himself forever, but that's just how it is being both a scientist and a human being. In a way, we are all about Oliver. Regular people, capable of greatness or something.
I'm ascending to the heavens!
Pito Pito is not a regular person.
世界の果てを見るまで頑張ります。
My parasocial obsession with this man's Minecraft series and the inner workings of his mind is older than mine with Oliver, and probably deeper. Oliver is bumbling, but in a familiar way for me. Pero Pito, or Nana, is a mad genius, and I need him studied in every university.
で、
First, let's get the language barrier bit out of the way. I don't know Japanese, although Piropito is certainly helping change that. Thanks to him, I can now count and express fear.
やばいやばいやばい。
The clumsiness of the translations on screen, and the special way he capitalizes letters, adds a layer of charm that no perfectly accurate translation could. They're not often congruent with exactly what he says, either. A single
も
can cover several tomes of information or parse out emotions his voice doesn't give away.
う、魔法使いは怖い。
I point this out because I can only count on his subtitles and his very unique speaking cadence.
と思います。
And the portrait they paint is of a cartoonishly devoted man with too much time on his hands.
全部で何ブロックあるか数えてみたいと思います。1、2、3。1マス数え間違えてたってことか。
In these videos, all thoughts are about either understanding or advancing.
何これ。なるほど。なるほど。なるほど。
And when he gets creative, he gets odd. It's a pleasant surprise when he starts incorporating horror elements, something more in line with the rest of his channel. But at the same time, he's capable of such whimsy, every discovery tinged with a subtle sense of wonder, which again lines up with the rest of his work. Minecraft shouldn't be Nana's claim to fame. Horror should. And his craftsmanship is outstanding, whether that's with his dolls, his game design, or the ant colony he keeps in his home, which... yeah, I guess it tracks that Piropito keeps an ant colony in his home, but I digress. He sinks ridiculous amounts of time and effort into even the most inconsequential things, and plays it completely straight.
ではここから伸ばしていきます。
Right. The bridge. How do I explain this? On rewatch, certain moments gain an almost mythical significance. The birth of the laboratory, entering the Nether, with one tiny hint from a friend because otherwise it would have been impossible. And of course, the Wither arc, which will go down in history as the greatest action spectacle ever put to screen. The whole series is worth it just for that. Yes, I know Oliver also built a lab and had a crazy Wither arc, but we don't have to talk about that right now.
今日は
Instead, we're going to talk about the bridge. The bridge is the literal through line of the whole playthrough. A meter-thick highway that helps orient him no matter where he is, gives him purpose, and stretches into the horizon like the zipper of the world. At the time of my writing this, it's coming up on 1 million blocks. Every new discovery, from crouching to shulker boxes, is judged by its usefulness to the construction effort, which helps validate Nana's wanderlust. Now and then, he decides to abandon his home base and migrate tens of thousands of blocks, to found a new one just for the sake of it, each more advanced than the last, but almost always on the line. One ever-present line manifesting in all things.
まだまだ続きそうだな。
The first time I watched a few years ago, the last episode was number 124. The series hasn't ended per se, but new episodes usually only appear when there's a big update. So as far as I was aware back then, that was it for Piropito's Minecraft. And it rounded off in a very anticlimactic but thematically appropriate way. His drive to experiment and analyze the world, no matter the cost, stole hours from his life and slapped him back at his first home, X = 0. A big loss, for sure, but now here he is, surrounded by the fruits of all he's learned, and all has Nana learned. Impressively, he did it despite the game's inconsistent and misleading language, a lot of which was transliterated but not actually translated into Japanese.
金のヘルメットとチェストプレート、スプラッシュポーション、エンダーチェスト、コーラスフルーツ、エンドロッド、コンクリートパウダーブロックで。村人も
Wrong clip. Anyway, Piropito can't assume function from a name, which forces him to experiment more thoroughly. Not like he needs much forcing to do that. Or anything else, really.
なんかこの透明のグラスがすごいかっこいいので、ガラスガラスガラスガラスガラスガラスガラスグラス
Glass. Yes, that's right, made of glass. Good bird, Apollo.
Learning, even learning human things, isn't exclusive to humans, obviously.
What's this? These are keys. What's that made of?
But if, for the sake of this argument, we pretend Minecraft is equivalent to the real world, I think the way Nana and Oliver learn occupies a space between the animal and the typical human. A space that few real people have ever walked.
What's this?
Diorite.
One thing separating humans from most other animals is the way we preserve abstract knowledge outside of ourselves. Parents may teach their young how to move or find food, for example, but this transfer can only happen with both parties present, can only go so far in space or time. Knowledge, probably, can't be communicated by the smell of piss on a fire hydrant. That's just information, without the layer of abstraction that something like this covers it with. Humans' ability to teach over vast distances made civilization possible, and now more people can acquire more knowledge with less effort than ever before. Almost all humans have their thoughts on human things influenced by having been around humans our whole lives who explain these things to us. And we don't remember being babies, so we can't relay the first-hand experience of learning these things for the first time. As such, we crave learning new things, and when we aren't doing that, we crave watching others learn. That's the appeal of teaching. It's also the appeal of reaction content, and the blind Let's Play.
Let me guess. What's up, cow? What's up, cow?
Which brings us back to Minecraft. Oliver and Nana have both the educational limits of animals and the powerful rational mind of humans. Alone, but capable. Let's go back. The player behind the screen isn't born in Minecraft. They carry knowledge from reality and other games with them. You could call that common sense. Bandana Doo is making a series of videos simulating a totally blind playthrough. Aside from being painfully funny, there are a few big takeaways. Mainly,
The common sense rule.
Common sense.
Most people intuitively know that this is a pig, not because of advanced game knowledge, but because it looks like a pig and makes pig sounds. Depending on what seems most intuitive, my initial interactions with a given mechanic may lean towards a particular conclusion if it can be easily inferred through common sense.
but you know what they say about assuming. Is common sense even dependable?
時計なんて何に使うんだろう。ああ、時間わかるってことか。
Philosopher David Hume suggested we can never be absolutely certain that one thing causes another. So all reason is just an instinct,
which is an expression of faith in the mechanics of the world.
until the world contradicts it. Bertrand Russell gave a famous example, which got adapted into what's called the turkey illusion. You are a turkey scientist. Every morning, the farmer comes in and feeds your flock. So one day you proclaim your findings that every morning, forever, the farmer will come in and feed your flock. Then he slaughters you. The stakes for not knowing the underlying reason for something are not usually so high, but as the likes of René Descartes suggested, we can never be absolutely sure of anything. All we have is empirical evidence. Science.
We don't want to get disturbed while we do science, do we?
Now I shouldn't have to tell you what the scientific method is. You wonder about a thing, you test out different scenarios, and you theorize based on the data. And so, since Piropito and Oliver don't have the wiki on speed dial, they must become the wiki. And the game actually does encourage this. We pretend Minecraft plops you into the world with no guidance, but it isn't allergic to holding your hand. Explicitly, or implicitly. Often so implicitly that we assume there's no way for us to find out these things except by random chance, when really the clues are just so subtle most of us ignore them. Most things in the game can be deduced, eventually, by their relationships with each other. Brewing stands are made with blaze rods, which you can find in the same fortresses where they grow netherwort. Ender crystals heal the dragon in a ring around the exit portal, so surrounding this portal with crystals correlates with the dragon being alive. You have this painting, so you can build the wither, so you can build golems.
Oh!
But these are all big stretches and easily fixed. They're frustrating to piece together, but not impossible. Other things are impossible. Against stuff like that, empirical trial and error fall short.
What is that? I don't care.
Discourse over whether it's possible to beat the game with no outside help predates Minecraft. Hell, it predates video games themselves. If we want to get to the root of what drives Piropito and Oliver, we need to go back to the 12th century. Ibn Tufayl was a scholar during the Islamic Golden Age. He drew on the ideas of thinkers like Plato, Ibn Sina, and Al-Ghazali, and they come together in his most famous piece, a long-form thought experiment about a man named Hayy ibn Yaqzan.
حي ابن يقظان
Hayy ibn Yaqzan.
حي ابن يقظان
Hayy ibn Yaqzan.
حي ابن يقظان.
Yeah, I guess you're just gonna have to deal with that. That name's been translated several ways, but what you need to know is that Hayy is a very smart guy. Smart enough to teach himself the rules of the game, or at least the rules according to Ibn Tufayl. Let me elaborate. Somewhere in the tropics, there is an uninhabited island with the perfect conditions for life. Plants, animals, resources galore. It's not specified, nor does it really matter whether this baby, Hayy ibn Yaqzan, got there by drifting on a basket or spawning out of clay on the beach, but he is here. A doe takes care of Hayy as he grows. But over the years, he learns that imitating other animals can only get him so far, because he is not other animals. He will not grow horns, or fur, or a tail to protect himself from the elements, so he decides to take matters into his own hands. What he can't become, he will invent. Clothes, tools, weapons. Already on this island, he's a formidable force. But one day, his dear mother dies and forces him to confront the impermanence of things, albeit not before he digs through her body trying to find the source of her suffering, in one organ or another. He becomes obsessed with dissecting animals, and eventually he pinpoints the soul itself. But still, Hai's self-education has only just started. He discovers fire, and cooking, and platonic ideas. He speculates about the fundamental elements: fire, water, earth, and air. He theorizes about the physics of motion, and the metaphysics of being. Through logic alone, he deduces the existence of one ever-present God that manifests in all things, building a new morality around this knowledge. But wisdom is not enough anymore. He needs enlightenment. He starts to meditate, spending his days in caves for sensory deprivation, fasting for days on end, whirling in place until he can commune with the divine. By now, Hai ibn Yaqzan is a true mystic. He has invented a version of Sufi Islam based on nothing but nature, reason, and time to contemplate. Much more impressive than beating the Ender Dragon, not just because of the amount that has to be learned, but the method. As not only is Hai the only person he knows, as far as he's concerned, he's the only person who's ever lived, which puts the responsibility on him, as God's rational agent, to keep living and keep learning, perfecting himself and getting closer to the stars. But first he must find out what stars are, what he is, and what responsibility is. He doesn't have the common sense rule, he has to make it by himself.
I have no idea what this stuff does. It kills me. It kills me.
So Bandana Du's silly blunders around the common sense rule touch on something that Oliver and Pirobito don't, taking for granted that the absolute norms of their reality have been transplanted onto this digital copy.
That's a crime. We don't break the laws of physics here.
Even then, though, they're not like Bertrand Russell's Turkey scientists, because they know why deviations might be made. Hai can only infer the nature of the universe, whereas we already know what lies at the heart of Minecraft. Code. Written by people, readable by people. Code does what it's told to, and if it doesn't, we can usually figure out why. It's deterministic in a way we can't prove our world to be, which lends itself very well to the kind of science Nana and Oliver make use of. One where there are indisputable right answers, and where being wrong is only a matter of not having played long enough. It's all fun and games when you see something like this.
It lights up with red light. This has to be related to crying obsidian.
But how do we respond to someone coming to a bad conclusion about real life? That is, when we can't disqualify just by pointing to one line of code that applies equally to everyone. Think anti-vaxxers, climate denial, eugenics. They're wrong, but if you're ignorant or act in bad faith, not indisputably wrong. And it takes the work of just as many people to disprove those ideas as it did to invent them. You can do that sort of research by yourself in real life, but eventually you will run into the problem of being just one person who can't see and do everything. Minecraft doesn't have that problem. Joyful makes very insightful videos going into more detail about the point I'll make here, but to sum it up, Minecraft is a single-player game. Nothing in the core gameplay loops or progression requires teamwork. Anything you have to do, from mining to farming to exploring, you can do by yourself. Division of labor in multiplayer is pretty much arbitrary, as is the variation between players as observers, by which I mean, the person behind the screen is unique, but the character is fundamentally the same every time. The same senses, the same abilities, and the same limits on potential experiences, whether by your settings or your world gen. All Minecrafters are created equal and equally capable of everything. When we spawn into an empty world, all the structures in society that might hold us back, all the thought-terminating rules and symbols, are stripped away, and we're free to develop to our full potential, which is everything. In real life that'd be unrealistic, but in this world, and in Ubuntu files, it becomes truth. It's how these two players mastered the game. It's how Hai ibn Yaqzan found God. Alone. But not really. Hai is far from the only feral child used to make a philosophical point. It's one of the oldest tropes in history, but none of these children ever taught themselves from scratch. Their environment gave them every clue they needed and the tools for survival. Nature nurtured. You could call it the game design of reality. Hai makes a point to respect all the life around him, the life that kept him living and unknowingly taught him how. He's as much a product of nature as they are, a player molded by the code that he followed to get there. That said, each feral child story has its own vision of what makes humanity special. Some less reassuring than others. You've seen Disney's Tarzan, but probably don't know much about Tarzan of the Apes. Reading this book in the 21st century is a truly unsettling experience. Tarzan is raised by creatures of the forest, but he doesn't care as much to understand it as he does to conquer it, which as the superior man in the jungle is apparently his right. He has something the elephants, the apes, and the extremely racist caricatures of native Africans don't. Divine reason. Not because he's human, but because he's the son of well-bred British nobles. When imitating nature doesn't work, he ends up reverse engineering the civilization of his parents, the one he is destined to inherit. He reads, writes, shaves, hunts for sport, invents clothing, assumes racism, and entitles himself to authority over all creatures, all before Europeans arrive and validate these things for him. Tarzan is the logical endpoint of the Robinson Crusoe narrative, where an intrepid Western man goes through the crucible of wild, uncivilized nature and comes out with a newfound sense of power and agency. If somehow we put all the white supremacy to the side for a moment and think about Tarzan's attitude toward nature, is what he does really so different from Oliver and Piropito's game progression?
もう荒れ放題荒れてるな、なんか。
They too learned what was most efficient and used it, but it just so happens that what's most efficient in Minecraft is villager slavery, factory farming, and infinite expansion.
This advanced technology, this knowledge you guys have, the way you are manipulating this world, the way you're trapping the villagers, you're actually enslaving them. You have completely bent the world to your will. It scares me.
Many months later.
I am like a god at this point, manipulating the world itself, you know? I'm considering genocide at this point. See how I protect you all? You're free. Ow!
That's more an indictment of the unintended consequences of game design than the players who were just playing the game, though. Folding Ideas said it best, or at least quoted someone who did.
In the 2019 essay collection Video Games in the Global South, Jules Scotness Brown observes, in an era when physical space has been thoroughly explored, virtual spaces harken back to the romance of the colonial frontier as new regions to discover and conquer. The player arrives like Robinson Crusoe into a terra nullius and encourages him to improve this land. Its inhabitants appear simply as obstacles in the path of development or as resources to exploit.
That's so British right now.
On a more fundamental level, doing kinda, sorta, maybe colonialism in Minecraft
Oh my god, it's a thriving community. Let's fuck it up by stealing everything.
can be rationalized by its solipsism. That is, only the players themselves experience the world and make decisions. Everything else is just code. They're not people, but that's also what actual colonialists tell themselves. Aim your fury at them, not Minecraft. Again, in Folding Ideas words.
I like exploring, I like building things, I like terraforming, and that's not to say that those interests are illegitimate, but it does speak to deeper cultural values that I have inherited.
Minecraft may have been born from the same stock as Robinson Crusoe and Tarzan, but that doesn't make Hai Ibn Yaqzan's journey any less relevant. For him, too, reason is divine. To be God's instrument on Earth rather than to subjugate it. Which you can't even really do in Minecraft because the world is too vast and immune to systemic changes. You'll never displace every villager or burn enough coal to make the polar bears go extinct. It's your world to embrace, all the way. But, spoiler alert, other people exist. You can go it alone in Minecraft, but we live in this. Even without the complicated politics and supply chains of the modern world, humans are social animals. Real stories of so-called feral children are much less romantic than Ibn Tufayl might have you think. He did concede that his story was more symbolic of spiritual growth than representing anything that could actually happen, but the tale of Hai Ibn Yaqzan does not end with his enlightenment. One day, a mystic named Apsal goes to Hai's island, to live out the rest of his days alone, but soon enough he meets Hai, teaches him language, and they return to civilization together, where the once feral man learns about money, government, and their religion, remarkably similar to his. But the masses are spoon-fed it with the kinds of set-in-stone images and symbols that stunt their spiritual thinking. They're not philosophers, they just follow. They've learned to live with inequality and violence, and they don't take Hai seriously when he tries to lead them down a better path. Even trying takes effort, because his enlightenment was completely organic, taking place without language. It's impossible to truly reify or put into words. So he and Apsal go back to their island and live according to their faith until they die. A happy ending for these two, but it's quite a cynical view of men for someone so set on the perfectibility of man, and rather the opposite view from a lot of modern ones that play with similar ideas. Lord of the Flies inverts Ibn Tufayl's idealistic stance on humans' return to a state of nature in a deeply misanthropic way. Nature doesn't teach these children anything but bloodlust and superstition. They don't bother interrogating the fundamentals of their world because they're too busy skimming what they need to survive off the surface, chasing spurious connections while the beast was always inside. The show Yellow Jackets takes a similar, if more critical, position. Here, the call to faith that we feel in nature, without the influence of society or any direct spiritual guidance, is not a draw toward clarity, but madness. Or perhaps the lessons of Hai's divine teacher are so incompatible with people already molded by society that it degrades them into a sort of animal condition unmoored by either social rules or God, compelling them to invent their own based on the sorts of bad luck, coincidence, and confirmation bias that made Oliver think elytras are cosmetic.
Oh, it's a cape!
That make turkey scientists think they can live forever. Science and faith are incompatible in Yellow Jackets because its version of nature so blatantly disobeys any attempt to investigate it according to consistent rules that the characters develop a kind of learned helplessness to its cruelty. Either they come to heel, or they keep flailing themselves at common sense until they forfeit understanding altogether. Which isn't completely unscientific as a process, but it's undoubtedly bleak.
You really don't belong in this place.
I believe there's a middle ground to these perspectives, one that acknowledges that our need for each other is just as important as our need to do our own thinking. Sure, maybe isolation always forces us to think on our feet and reason our way out of problems, to reach our full potential. But it doesn't. Maybe living in a society disincentivizes us from making the most of our abilities, but it doesn't. 1,000 philosophical thought experiments are no match for the evidence of collective human ingenuity that you're surrounded by, and that you're watching this on right now. Look, I'm no techno-optimist by a long shot, but if we've achieved this much already, we can't be any less capable of building a better world united than a Minecraft player is alone. Even then, I was being a little facetious when I said this game is individualistic. It's actually so individualistic that it horseshoes around to becoming collectivist again. By which I mean, under normal circumstances, every player alone is capable of meeting 100% of their needs. So when you bring players together, not only can you pool knowledge and resources, you can pretty easily create what's functionally a post-scarcity society. The equality of all players in the game engine means no one is naturally more powerful than anyone else. If hierarchies do form, they'll be fragile and unstable. And before you ask, no, I haven't seen Parkour Civilization. The tale of About Oliver does not end with his enlightenment.
I feel like you guys want me to do something special with this, Brett. What the hell is that?
After Season 1 of his playthrough,
what's this?
He visits the map and servers his viewers built in his honor.
It's a diorite cube! It's a solid block of diorite! You actually went out and found all this diorite!
Could all this have been built alone? Not for us, but I wouldn't put it past them. And neither does the game.
Yatta!
Psych! This was about the end poem the entire time.
What the fuck am I reading?
It was always the key. One ever-present love manifesting in all things. You and me and everyone manifesting in the divine. I can't know if that's how the world really works. I hope we never find out. In the meantime though, maybe we'll all just have to come to our own understanding. Thanks for watching.
find the things I wanna build. I wanna build them high. Yeah, that shit is hella cool. Yeah, I couldn't make it rhyme, I don't give a shit. I'm looking for the new things I can build, bitch. Yeah, I just wanna build it up good. This is a new vlog, is that understood? In the hood, listen to my crap that I fucking let rip from my cap. That is what I'm wearing on my town flap. I'm giving up. That was my clown on the scene. You cannot even dream of the things that I evolved in my brain. Listen, I scream. Yeah, coming from the heart. I make it sound, man. I go with the bars. Yeah, that's where I hang out in my free time, having fun with people online.
なるほど。